love kids, and kids love you too, Bullwinkle. Why, look at all the wonderful I Love Bullwinkle cards you've been getting.
Well, this is odd. I don't know if it's a good idea to be wearing a sign that says I love kids. That's probably going to get you on some kind of list. So to match the theme of my last video that got very positive feedback, I'm taking a look at another Chuck E. Cheese inspired place. And to make sure I don't deviate too much from my channel's main theme, this one is also based around a famous cartoon series, that being Rocky and Bullwinkle. Now, since I've never talked about Rocky, Bullwinkle, or any of the characters in their universe, I guess you would call it, I'm gonna give a brief backstory on some of those characters. I feel like you gotta know some stuff about them, even if it's just the basics, to fully understand the main topic of the video. But I'm not gonna go too deep into it, as I will probably make a standalone video on these characters in the future. So Rocky, Bullwinkle, and most of the notable characters in their animated universe pantheon made their debut in the TV series Rocky and His Friends. The idea for the main characters of Rocky the Flying Squirrel and Bullwinkle the Western Moose came from an idea for an animated TV show by Jay Ward and Alex Anderson, known as the Frostbite Falls Revue, which would have been about a group of animals who have their own TV station. In the group of animals, there would have been a bear, a fox, a crow, and also a squirrel and a moose. And all of the characters were designed by Anderson. But when Ward and Anderson pitched the show to TV stations, no one wanted it and the idea went unused. So Ward and Anderson would eventually split up and go do their own things. Anderson went to work for an advertising agency, while Ward continued in the world of television animation. But now that his old partner was gone, he needed someone else. And that someone else was Bill Scott. Once the two men teamed up, they would make plans for a new series, titled Phineas T. Fox Adventurer, and the show would have been about a Fox character who was a detective. But there were some issues during the planning stages of the show, so the idea was cancelled. It did not make it far at all. But Ward, still not giving up, would then take the squirrel and moose character from the Frostbite Falls Revue and make them the main characters of a new idea. Bill Scott then took the characters and refined them, making them into who we know them as today. Bullwinkle the Moose would be a dumb and comic relief character, while Rocky the Flying Squirrel would serve as a straight man character.
How much will it cost to take us to Frostbite Falls?
You want round trip?
Got any square ones?
Finally, Bullwinkle's clever plan to make a swimming raid on the island went slightly awry when he neglected just one little detail.
I can't swim!
And without getting too specific, the main plot of the show would usually follow Rocky and Bullwinkle on some sort of adventure, and the villains of the show, Natasha Fatal and Boris Badenov, would usually interrupt whatever they had going on, or try to kill them, sometimes both at the same time.
Our boys wouldn't have been so happy had they overheard two notorious spies.
You hear, Natasha? First get the formula and then kill the moose or vice versa.
And the show was not only about Rocky and Bullwinkle, but was split into segments that would star other characters, such as Dudley Do Right and the characters in his storylines, like his horse and Snidely Whiplash.
Send Constable Do Right in here and tell him to hurry.
You sent for me, sir?
Later on a border town ballroom.
So you're a musician, eh?
Yes.
Can you read music?
No.
You're hired.
Dudley brought...
I tricked you, you rascal. That's not Nell. That's my horse in an L suit. What? You married my horse.
And there was also Mr. Peabody and Sherman who were introduced in this show. And while Dudley was created by the same guys behind Rocky and Bullwinkle, you know, Ward, Anderson, and Scott, Mr. Peabody and Sherman were created by Ted Key.
Here, Sherman. Here, boy. Shake hands. Say hello.
Hello.
Smart as a whip, isn't he?
Now, when this show was pitched to television stations, it was greenlit. It would air on ABC, be sponsored by General Mills, and be titled Rocky and His Friends. And that name would be changed several times over the years, but to keep things simple, I'm just going to be calling it the Rocky and Bullwinkle Show throughout this video. So the show was animated by Gamma Productions, which was located in Mexico, and it was cheap to produce the animation, but that also came with a quality hit. The show was not well animated at all, but strangely enough, that may have helped the show a bit, as since the animation was trash, the writing and characters in the show had to be perfect. So a lot of effort was put into those areas of the show's creation. And it worked out because the show was a success when it first aired in 1959. The writing for the show in particular was well liked. It was, well, I don't really know how to describe the humor of the show. I guess self-aware would be the best way. And it parodied a variety of subjects. Okay, I think that's enough backstory. Like I said, I just wanted to give the basics, but I think I went over enough. So now let's get into the main topic of the video. In the early 1980s, a guy named David Brown, now usually I would show a picture of the person, but I don't know which David Brown it is. It's apparently a very common name. Let's just pretend this one here is him. Sure. Anyways, David Brown wanted to get the rights to both the Rocky and Bullwinkle show characters, and also the characters from Total Television Productions, who had characters like Underdog and Tennessee Tuxedo. Not your most famous cartoon characters nowadays, but back in the day they had some fame, albeit I'm not sure how much. I don't believe I've ever seen any of their characters before making this video. Besides Underdog, I think I've seen him before. So Brown did eventually get the permission to use the characters. He did not own them or anything, but he was free to use them in something like merchandise, for example. The first most notable thing Brown did with the characters was make a show, a traveling show, and the performers would dress up like the characters from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, and also the characters owned by Total Television Productions. But there was also a new character introduced that, as far as I'm aware, only ever appeared in this live show, and that was a female moose character named Moonbeam, who served as a love interest to Bullwinkle. The show ran from 1980 to 1981, and after it ended, Brown wanted to take the characters that he had access to and use them in a place similar to Chuck E. Cheese. And as you may know, around this time in the early 80s, places like this, where there was a restaurant with arcade games and animatronic entertainment, were huge. So Brown saw just how big of a fad this was, and knew that with the iconic characters he had access to, he could make a place that would rival the rest. Enter Bullwinkle's Family Food and Fun restaurant, which opened in Santa Clara, California on June 14th, 1982. So let's get into this original location.
This is Bullwinkle's Family Food and Fun restaurant, developed around the internationally famous Bullwinkle the Moose and Rocky the Flying Squirrel cartoon characters.
So the exterior of the building was made to look like a Canadian cabin sort of thing, to go with Dudley Do Right. Now looking at the interior, it was heavily decorated with a bunch of random stuff. And when first entering the location, we see the first animatronic, and that was Snidely Whiplash, who would sit behind bars and talk to the visitors about his current plight. Now the other animatronics would be found in the main dining area. I like this guy here who's just smoking in there, that definitely would not be annoying. Anyways, at the main show stage, it had 3 parts to it. In the center of the stage was Rocky and Bullwinkle, the main stars of the show. But it was not just them at center stage. Beside Bullwinkle was Underdog, and then above Rocky, Bullwinkle, and Underdog were Tudor Turtle and Hoppity Hooper, 2 characters from Total Television Productions. Then placed on the left part of the stage was Dudley Do Right, who looks friggin' creepy. I think it's the smile. It's just unnaturally large. Then on the right side of the stage, there was an animatronic of Tennessee Tuxedo, but also beside Tennessee Tuxedo was his sidekick from the show that he was originally from, and that sidekick was a walrus named Chumley. You may be looking at this stage and thinking that that's all, but nope, not quite. Above the stage, there were animatronics for Natasha Fatal and Boris Badenov, but it wasn't a full-on animatronic. Instead, it was just their bust, as like signs. So it wasn't physically them, but they were still there in spirit. Or signage, I guess would be the more accurate term. And all of these animatronic figures were created by the only animated display and design company. Yep, that was the name.
A dumb old walrus or a flying squirrel?
Gee, thanks, Bullwinkle.
Yeah, that goes for me too.
Friends can be penguins who live in the cold.
Right you are.
Friends can be turtles who live to be old. Friends can be found in the swamp like a frog. Or hanging round fire hydrants, just like a dog.
Moose is your enemy.
Oh, yeah. With enemy like Moose, who needs friends?
Now, in front of the stage was something I have never seen at any of these other Chuck E. Cheese inspired places. In front of the stage, there was a water show, and they must have been really proud of this because in the promotional video for this first location, the water show is recorded for an incredibly long time. Now, if you were a boring person and did not want to watch the animatronic show or water show, there was another dining area that was just a regular place to sit down and eat, known as Dudley's Den, where you could dine in peace and quiet. Boring. All the cool people watch the water show. Oh yeah, look at it go. While they inhale the smoke from this random guy here. And of course, this place had some arcade games, which could have been found in a room known as Underdog's Mighty Metropolis, which had a pretty unique nighttime city theming. Now, if you wanted to take a picture for whatever reason, they had a room for that too, named Mr. Peabody's Improbable Picture Place. Sadly, neither Mr. Peabody nor Sherman appeared in animatronic form. So that's pretty much all of the entertainment options that were available. Now, what about the food? How was that? that? Well, it consisted of the regular fast food items, pizza, burgers, fried chicken, sandwiches, stuff like that. They also had something known as the famous pizza, and this thing just sounds like something that should be outlawed. It was a deep dish, double-crusted stuffed pizza. That already sounds like a lot. But also stuffed with sausage, pepperoni, salami, 6 different types of cheese, tomatoes, mushrooms, onions, pineapple, green peppers, and shrimp. If you eat that, you will more than likely go into a coma. Oh, also, I did not mention this, but the employees at the location would wear the Canadian Mountie getup to match the theme of Dudley Do Right and the building itself.
Employees wear an attractive Deputy Mountie uniform.
Whoa, slow down there, Mr. Narrator. Let's keep things professional and not be hitting on the employees.
It is themed with a variety of rustic-looking but attractive lamps.
Okay, can we also not hit on the lamps either? So there was a look at the original location. I think I went over about all it had to offer. And apparently it was enough of a success to continue the brand's growth, as in 1983, 2 new locations would open in Canada. To be more specific, one in Edmonton and one in Calgary. And at these locations, everything was pretty much the same, but the animatronic show got some changes to it. The animatronics were now made by AVG Technology, and they were chosen since they could make the animatronic figures cheaper than the only animated display and design company. And the cast was pretty similar at this updated stage show. It consisted of Rocky, Bullwinkle, Dudley Do Right, Hoppity Hooper, and Tudor Turtle. Then up above, you still had Boris and Natasha, but Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley were gone, and Underdog was moved to where they used to be. So rest in peace, Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley. As at the original location in California, it would have the old stage show replaced with the new one, and Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley would never make a comeback. But the water show was kept around, oh yeah. Look at it go. So now we have 3 locations, 1 in California and 2 in Canada. And when new locations would open, they would usually be kept to either the west coast or east coast of the US. The animatronic stage shows would vary, so it's hard to pinpoint which location had which, but by this point in the mid-80s, when new locations would open, they had a new stage show, and the stage only had one part to it, with Rocky and Bullwinkle, then Boris and Natasha as heads up top. But for some reason, sometimes Tudor Turtle was kept around, but that wasn't too common. And also, now this is tragic, some locations got rid of the water show, but some did keep it, so it's not all bad. There wasn't really a specific stage format per location as far as I'm aware. It was just kind of random, but every single new location did have, at the very least, Rocky, Bullwinkle, Boris, and Natasha. And just so there's no confusion, the old locations remained the same. So Dudley and Underdog, for example, in the first few locations did still stick around. Around this time, still in the mid-80s, a new entity would enter the picture, that being the Hewish Family Fun Centers, which had a couple of locations in the US, and it was a family entertainment center. It had stuff like mini golf, go-karts, arcade games, that kind of thing, and they would partner with Bullwinkle's, and add the restaurant part of Bullwinkle's and the animatronic show to pre-existing Hewish Family Fun Centers. So now Bullwinkle's was like Chuck E. Cheese on steroids, and this collaboration would continue into the early 90s, when Hewish Family Fun Centers would straight up buy the entirety of the Bullwinkle's restaurant chain. Now, of course, that did not mean they owned the cartoon characters, just the restaurant-related stuff. Now, some locations did not even include the animatronic show, and only used the characters for branding. For example, in commercials. And this is a good segue into this commercial I found. It's really weird. Firstly, Bullwinkle, buddy, you can't be walking around with a sign that says, "I love kids." That's just, you can't do that. And in all honesty, I don't think this is even Bullwinkle. Listen how this dude sounds.
Hi kids, 10 free games or rides if you buy some food, and there's also a limit of 10 tokens per child per visit.
What on earth is that voice? And what's with the background music? Why does it get so incredibly loud? Alright, now here in the late 90s, after the Hewish Family Fun Centers bought Bullwinkle's, AVG, the ones who were making the animatronic stage shows, went out of business, so a new show was made, and by a different company, and that company was Dreamation. And it was only ever installed in one location as far as I'm aware, and that was the one in Washington. And here we have our first interesting outer facade, which was made to look like a ticket booth. And when it was time for a show, the center part of the stage would rotate, revealing Rocky and Bullwinkle, who were now the only full animatronic characters. There was still Boris and Natasha though, but still still only as heads. Now there is one massive issue with this stage, and you may already know what that is. There was no water show, so this stage gets a big ol' thumbs down. Okay, now we're in the final stretch of Bullwinkle's history, as in 1998, a new stage would be introduced, and it was a stage known as Northwoods, and this was used in 3 brand new locations, in South Carolina, North Carolina, and New York. And the locations with this stage had a new exterior to the entire building itself that looked pretty cool. And I would say that this is the most elaborate stage setup so far. The background of the stage was of a cartoony town, and in the center, you of course had Rocky and Bullwinkle, but you also had Dudley Do Right and Underdog who were brought back. And from my understanding, when some of the older locations were closed, Dudley and Underdog were brought from those, and placed on top of the buildings on the new stage. And since the old figures were made by AVG, while the Rocky and Bullwinkle ones were made by Dreamation, Underdog and Dudley got some new outer cosmetics made by Dreamation. Oh, also Boris and Natasha were once again still here. The water show was also brought back for 2 of these new locations, which normally would be good news, but not even the greatness of the water show could save Bullwinkle's for what was coming for it. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Bullwinkle's, which also included the Hewish Family Fun Centers now, were struggling a lot financially, and this just seems to be a must for any Chuck E. Cheese-like place. Every single one, at one point or another, has major financial issues that puts them out of business or gets very close to it. So to keep the brand from going completely under, a few locations would be sold off to Palace Entertainment, which is an amusement park company. And with the locations they bought, they would get rid of all of the Rocky and Bullwinkle themed stuff, except for one location for some reason, and they would rename the locations they bought to Boomers. Now eventually Boomers would close some of their locations, but we don't care about Boomers. We only care about Bullwinkle's, who did the exact same thing, and they closed many locations over the years, which leads us to today, where there are only 3 locations left, all on the west coast of the US. And only one of those 3 has an animatronic show, which is the box office stage setup at the Washington location. That may sound bad that they only have 3 locations left, but in all honesty, it's a whole lot better than a lot of the other Chuck E. Cheese inspired places that have been defunct for years. But with Bullwinkle's on the other hand, not only are some locations still around, they're still being updated. This year actually, the one in California was updated pretty heavily, and just like with the Looney Tunes Revue animatronics, several of the Bullwinkle's ones are in the hands of private collectors, some even being the same as the ones who have the Looney Tunes Revue figures. It's cool how some animatronics have survived after all of these years. And there you have it, a look back at the Bullwinkle's family food and fun restaurant chain, and also a brief look back at the beginnings of the Rocky and Bullwinkle franchise itself. I did this in the Chuck E. Cheese video, and I'll do it again here. A website that was very helpful in making this video was the bullwinklespage.com. The info and images from that website are great. And if you want to learn about anything I talked about in more detail, you can probably check it out there. Okay, back to my outro now. If you enjoyed this video, a subscription, a like, and maybe even a comment would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.